Goodbye.
I do not fear them.
After the lords of elves, dwarves, and men each receive special rings to give them strength to rule over their people, they are betrayed by a dark lord named Sauron, who forges a powerful ring in the land of Mordor to have control over the other rings. Sauron eventually starts taking their lands one after the other, but the lords of elves and men refuse to let this continue. They then take an army to Mordor to seek vengeance, and even though they initially get the upper hand against Sauron's soldiers, Sauron shows up and starts killing them. During the battle, he stabs the king of a place called Gondor, and his son, Isildur, looks devastated by this. Before Sauron kills him, Isildur picks up his father's sword and cuts off Sauron's finger, which has the powerful ring on it. Sauron suddenly vanishes from the battleground, and Isildur claims the ring. Even though he now has the chance to get rid of it, the ring fills his head with bad thoughts, and he decides to keep it. After a while, Isildur gets killed during a trip through the woods with his men. His body then falls into a nearby river, and the ring also sinks with him. Much later, a creature named Gollum finds the ring inside the river and decides to keep it. Unfortunately, the ring spends years corrupting Gollum's mind until Gandalf visits the Shire to attend the 111th birthday of his old friend, Bilbo. As he arrives, Bilbo's nephew, Frodo, welcomes him and eventually joins Gandalf's carriage. On the way, Gandalf wonders what Bilbo has planned for his party, and Frodo something, but Gandalf doesn't say anything.
You didn't think I'd miss your Uncle Bilbo's birthday?
After a while, Gandalf drops off Frodo on the way and eventually gets to Bilbo's house. Bilbo looks really happy to see Gandalf, and he quickly heads to the kitchen to prepare something for his friend. While he's at it, he hears someone knocking on the door and refuses to answer it because he's tired of people disturbing him. He then tells Gandalf something, and he asks if Bilbo will tell his nephew about his plan to leave the Shire. Bilbo says he will, and after a while, he heads out for his party with Gandalf. As he's called to give a speech, Bilbo starts by talking about how he's now 111 years old. He then takes the ring out of his pocket and hides it behind him. Nobody seems to understand what's going on, and Bilbo mentions that it's time for him to leave. As he bids them a very fond farewell, he suddenly disappears from the stage, and everyone looks shocked.
Goodbye.
Interestingly, the ring appears to have made Bilbo invisible, and he quickly walks back to his house to pack his things so he can leave the Shire. As he gets to the house, he meets Gandalf already waiting for him. Bilbo then mentions that he's ready to begin his journey, and Gandalf asks if he'll be leaving the ring back in the Shire for Frodo. Bilbo doesn't seem ready to let go of the ring, but Gandalf warns him to drop it for his own safety. As Bilbo is about to leave, he throws down the ring and walks away. Gandalf then tries to touch it, but as he sees a strange vision, he just leaves it. After a while, Frodo enters Bilbo's house and sees the ring on the floor. He then picks it up and asks Gandalf if Bilbo has really left the Shire. Gandalf confirms this and puts the ring inside an envelope, after which he says that Bilbo left it for him. Frodo looks shocked to hear this, but Gandalf tells him to keep it safe and make sure no one knows about it. After Gandalf leaves the Shire,
Keep it secret.
Sauron's spirit awakens and sends his servants to search for the ring. They eventually find Gollum and torture him so he can reveal where the ring is. Gollum then tells them that the ring is with the Baggins in the Shire. Meanwhile, Gandalf does some reading on the ring and finds out its origin. He also learns that there are some markings on the ring, so he returns to the Shire to ask Frodo for it. As Frodo gives it to him, Gandalf throws it into the fireplace to make the markings visible. After seeing the markings, Gandalf tells Frodo that the ring belongs to Sauron and that he made it to control. He also mentions that the ring is what made Bilbo look younger despite his age. Gandalf then says that the ring is now active and has heard its master's call.
Sauron has returned.
Frodo doesn't get this because he thought Sauron was defeated in the war, but Gandalf says that Sauron's life force is bound to the ring. He adds that Sauron is alive again, and he's seeking the ring to help him continue to bring darkness to the world. Frodo asks if they can just keep it somewhere in the Shire, but Gandalf mentions that Gollum has already revealed that the ring is there. He then tells Frodo to leave the Shire and use a new name so that no one will know who he is. As they're talking about Frodo's plans to leave, leave, Gandalf catches a boy named Sam, listening in on their conversation. Gandalf threatens to hurt him, but as Sam begs for his life, the wizard makes him promise to follow and protect Frodo on the journey. Sam agrees to do this, and as Gandalf leads them into the woods, he tells Frodo never to put on the ring because it will make it easier for Sauron to know where he is. Following this, Sam and Frodo begin their journey out of the Shire, and Gandalf heads over to meet a fellow wizard named Saruman.
For that is why you have come, is it not?
As Gandalf talks about the ring and how they can't let Sauron have it again, Saruman doesn't seem to have a problem with this. Gandalf is shocked to hear this, and he realizes that Saruman has now formed an alliance with Sauron to help him find the ring. Before Gandalf can do anything about it, Saruman overpowers him and imprisons him at the top of his tower. Elsewhere, Sam and Frodo bump into two fellow hobbits named Merry and Pippin. As the boys run away from where they stole something, Sam and Frodo join them. After a while, Frodo senses that one of Sauron's soldiers is headed in their direction. They quickly hide under a tree, and as Frodo suddenly gets the urge to put the ring on, Sam stops him from doing it. He then creates a distraction so they can leave the area. Following this, Merry and Pippin start wondering what's going on, and Frodo says he needs to leave the Shire. Merry then says he knows how they can get to a nearby town called Bree. As they leave, Sauron's soldier nearly catches up to them, but they eventually get on a raft and leave the Shire.
I have to leave the Shire.
After a while, they get to Bree and enter a bar to ask if Gandalf is around. The barman says he hasn't seen Gandalf in a long time, and the boys decide to sit down to think about what to do next. Suddenly, Sam notices a man staring at them from the corner of the bar. As Frodo also notices it, he asks the barman who the man is. The barman then mentions that the strange man is one of the dangerous rangers in the area, and that everyone calls him Strider because they don't know his name. Shortly after, Pippin gets drunk and reveals to some men in the bar that Frodo is a Baggins. Frodo cannot believe this, and as he goes to caution Pippin to stop talking, someone trips him. As he falls down, the ring enters his hand, and he disappears, leaving everyone shocked. Suddenly, Frodo finds himself in a strange place, where he hears Sauron's voice telling him that he has nowhere to hide. Frodo looks really scared and eventually removes the ring.
What do we do now?
As he finds himself inside the bar again, he looks relieved, but Strider grabs him and says that he's drawing too much attention to himself. Frodo doesn't understand this, but Strider takes him to a room upstairs. He then mentions that Frodo must be more careful because he's not holding just an ordinary ring. Shortly after, Sam, Merry, and Pippin enter the room, and Strider tells Frodo and the boys that they can no longer wait for Gandalf. Coincidentally, Sauron's men reach Bree and go to the room where Frodo and his friends were previously staying. Luckily, Strider has already moved them elsewhere, and they realize that they could have gotten killed. Frodo then asks who the men are, and Strider says they're the kings Sauron gave rings to before he made his special one. Strider adds that the kings, now called Nazgul, have fallen into darkness and are now Sauron's slaves who can feel the presence of the ring and will not stop tracking Frodo.
We're friends of Gandalf the Grey. Can you tell him we've arrived?
Following this, Strider and the boys leave Bree and head to a land of elves called Rivendell. After walking for a while, they stop near a mountain to rest, but are eventually attacked by the Nazgul again. Frodo then puts on the ring to turn invisible, but the Nazgul are still able to see him. As he takes it off, one of them stabs him, and Frodo gets hurt. Before they do anything else to him, Strider fights them off and chases them away. Unfortunately, Strider and the other boys realize that Frodo is dying. Strider then mentions that they need to take him to the elves before it's too late. Sam looks scared because it will take them 6 days to get to Rivendell, but Strider insists that they keep moving. After a while, an elf named Arwen meets them in the woods, and she happens to know Strider. As she also sees Frodo dying, she mentions that she needs to take him to her father to get him help. Strider then allows her to carry Frodo on her horse and take him to Rivendell as fast as she can. On the way, the Nazgul try to stop her, but she uses her magic to crush them with a massive wave of water in a nearby river. Following this, she gets to Rivendell, and Frodo is saved by Arwen's father, Lord Elrond. When Frodo wakes up, he sees Gandalf next to him and asks why he didn't show up in Bree. Gandalf then explains that he was captured by Saruman before he eventually found a way to escape. Almost immediately, Sam comes over to meet Frodo, and Gandalf says that his friend hasn't left his side since he arrived. After the boys head out, Frodo sees Bilbo in Rivendell and looks happy about this. Bilbo then shows him the book he wrote, and Frodo admires his uncle's work. Much later, Sam starts packing their things so they can return to the Shire after Frodo drops off the ring with the elves. Even though Frodo doesn't want to leave, he agrees that the ring will be much safer with the elves.
I'm not like you, Bilbo.
Elsewhere, Elrond tells Gandalf that Frodo has shown resilience by not succumbing to the ring's evil influence so far. Gandalf says they can no longer burden Frodo with it, but Elrond doesn't think there's anything else they can do. As he talks about Saruman, Gandalf mentions that the wizard is currently breeding an army of creatures called orcs to come after the ring. Elrond then mentions that Sauron's evil cannot be concealed by the power of the elves. He adds that the ring cannot stay in their land, and Gandalf looks disappointed as Elrond mentions that the time of elves is almost over. He asks Gandalf if he'll rely on the greedy dwarves for help. Gandalf then mentions that they must place their hope on men, but Elrond doesn't agree with this because they were the ones who kept the ring and allowed it to survive. He then reminds Gandalf of how he told Isildur to throw the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, but he refused and kept it for himself.
He has chosen exile.
As he says that men are divided and without a leader, Gandalf mentions that there's someone who can reunite them. He adds that the person he's talking about will reclaim the throne of Gondor, but Elrond doesn't sound sure about this. Shortly after, Elrond holds a council meeting with some representatives of the different groups of people in the land. During the meeting, Elrond announces that they need to find an answer to the problem they could have if Sauron gets freed and comes for them. He then calls Frodo to bring the ring to the table, and as he drops it, a man named Boromir looks amazed and can't believe that it's real. Almost immediately, Boromir stands up and talks about how he believes the ring is a gift which they can use to defeat Sauron and make their land better. Strider says no one can wield it because the ring answers to Sauron alone. Boromir doesn't seem to care.
I saw the eastern sky grow dark.
And he asks why a random ranger is even present at the council meeting. Just then, an elf named Legolas corrects Boromir and mentions that Strider is actually the heir of Gondor, whose real name is Aragorn. Boromir looks shocked and asks if Aragorn is Isildur's heir, and Legolas confirms this. Boromir looks quite pissed and mentions that Gondor doesn't have or need a king. Just then, Gandalf tells everyone that Aragorn is right about them not being able to use the ring. Elrond also mentions that the only thing they have to do is destroy the ring. A dwarf named Gimli immediately tries to smash the ring, but nothing happens to it. Elrond then says that the ring was forged from the fires of Mount Doom in Mordor, and that it has to be destroyed there. Following this, Elrond asks if anyone would like to volunteer to take the ring to Mordor. As the men argue about what to do, Frodo says he'll do it. The men look shocked by this, but Gandalf says he'll accompany him.
I will.
Aragorn then mentions that he'll protect Frodo on his journey, and Gimli and Legolas also agree to follow him. Even though Boromir initially sounds hesitant about joining the group, he eventually agrees to go with them. Almost immediately, Sam, Merry, and Pippin also mention that they want to follow Frodo, and Elrond accepts this. As he then looks at all of them, he calls them the Fellowship of the Ring. Shortly after, Frodo goes to say goodbye to Bilbo, and his uncle gives him a special sword. He mentions that it was made by the elves, and that it glows blue when orcs are nearby. He also gives Frodo a chainmail shirt made with a strong metal called mithril. As Frodo is about to put it on, Bilbo sees his old ring and gets drawn to it. Bilbo then asks Frodo if he can touch it again, but he refuses to let his uncle do this.
I'm sorry I brought this upon you, my boy.
Bilbo nearly attacks Frodo because of this, but as he controls himself, he says sorry to his nephew for placing such a huge burden on him. Shortly after, Frodo and the others leave for Mordor to destroy the ring on Mount Doom. The Fellowship of the Ring eventually stops on the way to rest, and Boromir takes this time to teach the kids how to use swords. Meanwhile, Gimli tells Gandalf that they're currently taking a longer route when they can just go through a place called the Mines of Moria, since it's shorter. He adds that he has a cousin there who will be waiting for them, but Gandalf says he won't pass there unless he has no other option. Suddenly, Gandalf and the others see some spy birds headed toward them, so they quickly find different places to hide. After the birds leave, Gandalf says that they're Saruman's spies, who he likely sent to find out where they are. He then suggests going through an icy mountain to make sure Saruman doesn't find them. While they're on the mountain, Frodo falls and loses the ring, but Boromir finds it. As he looks at it, he says it's quite strange that something so small is making them scared. Aragorn notices that Boromir is getting drawn to the ring, so he tells him to return it to Frodo. Boromir can't seem to take his eyes off the ring, but he eventually leaves it for Frodo before walking away. Shortly after, Saruman finds them and starts trying to bring down the mountain to kill them. Gandalf notices this and tries to defend his group, but unfortunately, Saruman happens to be very powerful, and he brings down a part of the mountain. Despite initially getting trapped, they survive and start thinking of taking another route to get to Mordor. Gimli then suggests going to the mines again, but Gandalf says he'll let Frodo decide because he's the ring bearer. As everyone then looks at Frodo, he agrees with Gimli's choice, and they head over there immediately. When they arrive at the front of the cave, they realize that they need to solve a puzzle to open the gates.
Dwarf doors are invisible when closed.
Gandalf tries his best to unlock the gates, but he's unable to crack the code. After a while, Frodo figures it out, and they all enter the cave. As Gimli then talks about how the place is a mine, Boromir looks around and says that it's more like a tomb, because there are dead bodies everywhere. Gimli is shocked by this, and he can't seem to believe that the dwarves in the mines, including his cousin, have been killed. Just as Boromir complains about coming to the mines, a strange creature with many tentacles enters the building and grabs Frodo. Before he's taken away, his friends and other members of the Fellowship quickly save him. As they then return to the cave, the entrance collapses, and Gandalf informs the others that they have no choice but to follow the dark paths in Moria to get to Mordor. He then says that he hopes their presence will go unnoticed by the forces inside the cave. Shortly after, Gandalf forgets the right route to follow, and as he tries to remember it,
I have no memory of this place.
Frodo sees Gollum inside the mines. As he tells Gandalf what he saw, the wizard mentions that Gollum has actually been following them for a while. He adds that Gollum had to escape from Sauron's prison to be able to get to the mines. Frodo says it's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill him, but Gandalf tells him not to judge people like that. He also mentions that even though he's not sure yet, he believes Gollum has a part to play in their mission. Frodo then says he wishes he never got the ring, but Gandalf encourages him that they just need to do their best on the mission. Almost immediately, Gandalf remembers the routes in the cave, and he continues his journey to Mordor with the others. On their way, Gandalf sees a dead body holding a book and decides to check what's inside. In the person's final notes, Gandalf learns that the people in the mines were killed by a monster after hearing drums and feeling the ground shake. As Gandalf reads it to the others,
They are coming.
Pippin mistakenly makes a loud sound by throwing something down a well. Gandalf seems pissed by this, and as he scolds Pippin, they suddenly hear loud drum sounds in the cave. They don't seem to understand what's going on, but as Frodo's sword glows blue, they realize that the orcs are around. Just then, the orcs show up in the cave, and the Fellowship fights them off. Unfortunately, Frodo gets stabbed in the fight by a cave troll, and this leaves the others shocked. Before the cave troll does anything else, they quickly work together to kill him. As they then check up on Frodo, they see that he's still alive because the cave troll's sword didn't get past the chainmail shirt he's wearing. Gimli looks impressed that Frodo managed to survive the attack, and the others also look relieved. Gandalf then notices that more orcs are headed their way, so he tells the others to follow him to cross the bridge leading out of the cave. On their way, Gandalf senses the presence of a dangerous demon called a Balrog. As they get chased by the demon,
What is this new devilry?
Gandalf and the others run toward the bridge. While the others cross it successfully, Gandalf stays back to make sure the Balrog doesn't pass. As he manages to break off a part of the bridge, the Balrog falls off into a ditch, but it suddenly drags Gandalf with him. Gandalf tries to hold on to the bridge, but as he struggles to do this, he looks at Aragorn and Frodo and tells them to continue their journey. As he falls into the ditch, Frodo looks devastated by this, but Aragorn takes him out of the cave with the others. Shortly after, Aragorn mentions that they need to head to a kingdom called Lothlorien. Boromir asks why he can't just let the kids recover from what just happened, and Aragorn says they need to leave before the orcs show up again. Following this, they begin their journey to Lothlorien, and as they get there, Gimli tells Frodo and the others that they need to be careful in the woods because there are rumors of an elf witch who lives there.
Frodo!
Shortly after, they're all stopped by some men who inform them that their queen, Galadriel, has been waiting for them. When they eventually meet Galadriel, she tells them that after Gandalf's death, their quest now stands upon the edge of a knife. She adds that if they stray a little, they'll fail. As they all stare at her, she welcomes them to her kingdom and tells them to go and rest. Before they leave the room, Galadriel enters Frodo's mind and calls his name while saying he's the only one who has seen Sauron's eye. Later that night, Frodo struggles to sleep and heads out to meet Galadriel. She then shows him a vision of how bad the world will become if Sauron gets the ring again. Frodo looks scared by this, and Galadriel says the Fellowship is slowly breaking and that one of them will try to steal the ring. Galadriel says that Frodo knows the person she's talking about, and as he looks confused, he offers to let her have the ring.
For it is also in my mind.
Galadriel then rejects it and says that Frodo needs to continue his quest alone because he's the ring bearer. Frodo says he knows what to do, but that he's just scared of doing it. Galadriel then encourages him by saying that even a small person like him can change the world. The next day, Galadriel says goodbye to Frodo and gives him the light of her kingdom's beloved star, which she hopes will guide him on his journey. After they leave Lothlorien, Frodo and the others continue their journey to Mordor. Elsewhere, Saruman creates an army of creatures called Uruk-hai and sends them on a quest to find and destroy the Fellowship. A while later, Aragorn gets the Fellowship to rest on the shore of a nearby river. Gimli doesn't think they need to rest yet, and Legolas also suggests continuing their journey because he can feel something coming for them.
I can feel it.
Aragorn still insists that they need to rest for a while because traveling during the day might be dangerous for them. Shortly after, they notice that Frodo is no longer seated next to them, and Aragorn also realizes that Boromir is missing. Interestingly, Frodo has already decided to head to Mordor alone, but Boromir suddenly shows up in front of him. He tells Frodo that he understands why he would want to go to Mordor alone, but that there are other ways to handle the situation. He then says that he needs the ring to protect his people and make his land great again, but Frodo refuses to give it up. Boromir doesn't look happy about this, and he attacks Frodo. Before he hurts him, Frodo wears the ring and disappears, leaving Boromir confused. He eventually gets back to his senses and realizes that the ring corrupted him and made him attack Frodo. Doesn't see him. Meanwhile, Frodo hides from Boromir, despite still being invisible, and he also hears the voice of the ring saying some words he doesn't understand.
You are not yourself.
As it also shows him a black hole, which scares him. Frodo removes the ring. Before he continues his journey to Mordor, Aragorn sees him, but Frodo tells him not to come close to him. Aragorn doesn't understand this, but Frodo explains what Boromir did. He also mentions that he needs to go to Mordor alone, because none of them can seem to control themselves when they're around the ring. Aragorn agrees with this, and Frodo tells him to take care of the others. Suddenly, Aragorn sees the glow on Frodo's sword and tells him to leave immediately. As he heads away, Aragorn walks toward the woods and sees that the Uruk-hai have found them. He then fights some of them off while their leader instructs the others to find Frodo and the other hobbits. After a while, Legolas and Gimli join Aragorn in fighting the Uruk-hai. Elsewhere, Merry and Pippin see Frodo from where they're hiding, and they realize that he wants to leave for Mordor alone. They then create a distraction to lure the Uruk-hai to follow them, so that Frodo will be able to leave freely. As they get captured, Boromir shows up out of nowhere to defend them. He fights quite well and kills some of the Uruk-hai, but their leader eventually shoots him with an arrow. Boromir refuses to go down easily, but as more arrows get shot at him, he falls to the ground. While Merry and Pippin are being taken away by the Uruk-hai, their leader stays back with Boromir. Before he does anything to Boromir, Aragorn shows up and kills him. Boromir then tells Aragorn that he's sorry for attacking Frodo. Aragorn believes he fought well to help them, and he says that he won't let anything happen to Boromir's people in Gondor. As he dies, Boromir thanks Aragorn and says he would have loved to serve him as king. Elsewhere, Frodo stares at the ring for a while before entering a boat to leave for Mordor. Out of nowhere, Sam shows up and tells him to wait, and Frodo looks shocked. As Sam enters the river to follow Frodo's boat, Frodo tells him to stay back because he can't swim, but he refuses. He eventually drowns in the river, but Frodo quickly saves him. He then tells Frodo that he made a promise to Gandalf to stay with him until the end, and that he plans to do just that. Even though Frodo would have preferred to go to Mordor alone, he hugs his friend and decides to take him there. After a while, Legolas reaches the second boat and tells Aragorn that they need to find Frodo. However, Aragorn says he's not going because Frodo's fate is no longer in their hands. Gimli believes the Fellowship has failed, but Aragorn says it won't, as long as they stand strong and go after Merry and Pippin to make sure they're not killed. Gimli and Legolas sound interested in this, and they head back into the woods to look for Merry and Pippin. Meanwhile, Frodo and Sam get to Mordor, and they look happy to have come that far. As Frodo mentions that he's not sure they might see the others again, Sam says they might. Frodo then says he's happy that Sam came with him, and this makes his friend smile. Following this, Frodo and Sam continue their journey to Mount Doom. After his uncle's sudden decision to leave the Shire, Frodo is left with a mysterious ring that holds more power than he can imagine. As he realizes that the ring could lead to the destruction of the world if it gets into the wrong hands, Frodo volunteers to head to Mount Doom to destroy it. Even though he was a small boy who didn't know much about fighting, Frodo understood what would happen if nothing was done to the ring, so he accepted the challenge to get rid of it, despite the risk involved. Just like Galadriel told him in Lothlorien, sometimes even a small person can make a change in the world.